Dallas Cowboys fall in Week 6 to the Philadelphia Eagles. How big of a setback is it for the Cowboys moving forward? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That is prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how's it going today, sir?
It could be going better. I would say that for sure. But, honestly, I think there's silver linings here. I mean, certainly you're 4-2. And I think if you had told me that the Cowboys would be 4-2 after week 1, going into the Lions game, I would have been thrilled. So, there's no moral victories, but certainly, despite how we all feel now, it certainly could be so much worse.
It could be worse. The problem is this is a tough game, Landon, for a variety of reasons. In case you didn't see it, the Dallas Cowboys fall to the Philadelphia Eagles here in Week 6. It was 26-17. The Cowboys got off to a horrific start in this game. They were down 20-0. Was it pretty quickly into the second quarter? Cooper Rush had multiple interceptions in the first half. There was a failed fourth down conversion inside their own territory. The Cowboys just didn't play very well, and this was pretty easily Cooper Rush's worst game of the season.
Yeah, it feels like all the turnover regression kind of caught up to him all at once, right? And he ended up with, I think, 3 interceptions in the game. And honestly, that was really the difference in the game. I mean, the Eagles scored a whole bunch of points in the second quarter, like everyone knew they would, almost like clockwork. And the good news is the Cowboys showed a lot of heart and kind of trying to claw back and kind of putting themselves in a position to try to come back in this game. But unfortunately, like I said, turnovers kind of ruined the day there, and then a missed opportunity on a touchdown when they ended up with a field goal. It just was too much, and I think it showed you kind of the difference between ultimately what you normally get out of a backup quarterback versus what we have been getting previously these last few weeks with Cooper Rush. So it was, and then obviously the mistakes, but I mean I think for the most part it felt like a lot of the difference in how the Cowboys rose or fell was based on how much the leprechaun was still dancing on Cooper Rush's shoulder.
Yeah, and we'll get into both sides of this, but I mean, this game was pretty close everywhere. Like it felt like the Eagles were running the ball like crazy in this game, and they were. But they averaged 3.5 yards per carry. I mean, they didn't do a ton on offense, despite what maybe it felt like. They had 268 yards of offense in this game. They averaged, I'm looking at it now, 3.9 yards per play.
Yeah.
It's not great. The Cowboys actually averaged more yards per play. They had more total yards. It's just the turnovers. The Cowboys had 4 turnovers in this game if you count the failed fourth down. And you can't do that when you play on the road, especially with a backup quarterback.
Yeah, the Eagles are going to have a really easy schedule, the easiest schedule maybe in the NFL in the second half of the season. They're going to win a lot of ball games. They're going to have a record that is way above what their fighting weight. I mean, this game should not have been as close as it was, and the Eagles, certainly were way less impressive in the second half, offensively and defensively. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how this all shakes out by the end of the season.
And that's why, if we take like a 10,000-foot view, the way the Cowboys played in this game isn't all that concerning, right? Like you have a backup quarterback playing in this game, right? Who did not play very well. The defense was put in some awful situations. They didn't really make a lot of plays stopping them, right? Inside the red zone and that kind of stuff. You had a bunch of penalties, and it was still, you know what, a 3-point game at one point in late in the fourth quarter. Like, you had a chance, but big picture view, it's a pretty devastating loss, Landon, because now all of a sudden you are 2.5 games back of Philadelphia. The Eagles' schedule coming up is so soft. And we know just from history, being the number 1 seed versus being a wild card team, I mean, your odds of like making it to the Super Bowl and winning it are like astronomically higher. So that's why it's such a tough loss, because the Cowboys were in position after today to have the best record in the NFC.
I see what you're saying, absolutely, and the odds of them coming into getting the number 1 seed, all of that is lessened. I also saw a whole bunch of really good NFC teams all lose today, and I also saw the opportunity for the wild card to come around. And look,
The problem is though, like as bad as Tampa looked, and as bad as Green Bay looked, and as bad as the 49ers look, I'm not sure that really matters for Dallas, right? Because you can't win those divisions. Like,
no, but I honestly, look, I see what you're saying for sure, and like, look, the opportunity to win the division is out of reach, but the opportunity of making the playoffs and doing something is certainly not out of reach, and I think that despite like what. I like the way this team is playing, like I like the fact that they, went down big on this team that was a juggernaut, and they still tried to claw their way back. And despite being completely, outclassed at quarterback, especially tonight, they were able to stay in this game. I think that, if Dak comes back and they can right the ship and win enough games, I think they're going to win enough games to make it into the playoffs, because I think the Cowboys, much like the Eagles, have an equally soft schedule, in the second half in a lot of ways. And so I still think that there's plenty of opportunity here for this team to be, grow into a juggernaut where, the pathway to winning a division, maybe not, but look, winning all the division and having a high seeding, it didn't help the Cowboys a ton last year either. So maybe there's another way that they need to do this at this point.
Yes, but at the same time, if you're the number 1 seed, that has so many advantages, right?
I mean, look, we lost our quarterback week 1. Like we shouldn't
That's
even
fair.
be having
That's
this
a fair
conversation
point.
after 6 games. Like Dak Prescott has played 1 game, and so far out of 6 games, and is slated to come back next week. I don't know. I have a hard time being as dour about this when the season was supposed to be over 5 weeks ago.
That's a fair point.
So I don't know. That's where I'm at.
No, that's important perspective, right? Like, we were after week 1, when we jumped on this podcast after that Sunday night game, we were just hoping that the Cowboys could stay in the hunt by the time Dak got back. They are 4-2. Seems like Dak is coming back next week with some very winnable games coming up. So you're right. It's just when you get that close to being able to like completely, control your own destiny and have things come through Dallas, it's tough. But all right, let's talk about how the offense performed in this game. But before we do that, I want to tell you about Nugenix. If you're feeling like you can't get in the shape that you were when you were in your, early to mid 20s, it's not your fault. As men age, our body naturally loses free testosterone, the man hormone. It happens to every man, and it can make it more difficult to stay in shape and be energetic and active. If you want more energy to counter the negative effects of aging, check out Nugenix Total T Testosterone Booster with Testofen. It will help you turn back the clock, re-energize your workouts, get you better results at the gym, and help you look and feel like the man that you really want to be. Nugenix Total T contains man-boosting key ingredients like Testofen. It has been validated in 5 clinical studies shown to boost free testosterone levels in men, because Nugenix Total T boosts free testosterone that the aging process robs. You'll feel stronger, leaner, you'll have more energy and drive, and you're more passion too. Your partner will certainly notice the difference. If you want a complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, all you have to do is text NFL to 231-231. Text now and get a bottle of Nugenix Thermal, their most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text NFL to 231. Again, text NFL to 231-231. Message and data rates may apply. Terms available at nugenix.com/terms. We also want to tell you guys about Athletic Greens. If you're taking Nugenix, you should also think about taking Athletic Greens. I've been taking it every morning for the last, 4 or 5 months now. Absolutely love it. It has a very mild and tropical taste that I actually look forward to having each morning before I have my coffee. So what's in this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals to help start your day off right. It costs you less than $3 a day, and you're investing in your health, and it is cheaper than your cold brew habit. In fact, it's cheaper than going out and buying all the supplements yourself. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially as we head into cold and flu season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That is it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. So make it easy. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NFL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, Landon, let's talk about the Cowboys offense in this game. Cooper Rush, we've mentioned it at the top, did not play well. 18 of 38, 181 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Feels like this is the game where he finally turned into a pumpkin, right?
Yeah, I was gonna use the analogy that it finally struck midnight, right? Yep. Yeah, the Cinderella is appropriate. I just think, it was just one of those things where the ball, eventually bounced the wrong way. They didn't get a penalty, on the interception that he was kind of giving up seemingly every game. It was getting them into a position where the other team had their hands on the ball, but he got taken away or something. So no such luck in this game. I will say that despite that, like it did feel a lot of kind of just rush base because Cooper rush base because it did feel like there was pressure for sure, but he didn't take any sacks. Like it wasn't like he was completely under siege at times. There was just times when he put bad balls out there, and then that he had a couple tips, obviously that it caused a couple of these interceptions. There's a couple just bad misses that he had at different points. I think offensively, really what held them in the game was the run game. The ability to run the football. I thought Zeke was fantastic tonight.
I thought it was amazing. Yeah.
And Pollard ran also equally well, and they kind of a 50-50 mix there, and it was really effective. I think they ended up with as many yards as rushing the football as the Eagles, but on like 13 less carries or something like that. So, the running game was really effective, and that's something that I think is a positive moving forward. I think going to the game in December is that I think you're going to be able to run on this team, and I think that doesn't bode well for the Eagles too. Is that it felt like despite the fact that the Cowboys really had a running game and kind of a cobbled together pass game with Rush. Based off that run game, it didn't feel like the Eagles were doing much to kind of stop the Cowboys. So that was kind of what was working. And then ultimately the tight ends were a huge portion of this game. I think between Ferguson and Hendershot, they ended up with 60-something yards and a touchdown. So both of them having huge games, which was big. I would have loved to seen a lot more out of the wide receivers, but I also think that a lot of that was Cooper Rush.
And I'll stick up for the receivers in this game. CeeDee Lamb could have had a touchdown, a 50-yard touchdown at the end of the game if Cooper Rush just delivers the ball a tad bit early. Michael Gallup is open on a 3rd down play to the sideline, and the ball just takes forever to get there. I think it's Bradbury that's able to make a play on the last drive. Gallup is open on the sideline, and the ball just he can't get it there. The receivers were open in this game.
Yeah, there was
another one. It was on a 2nd and 1. They did the little high-low play action boot. And Cooper Rush throws the ball out of bounds, and Michael Gallup's wide open in the middle of the field. So I think the receivers were open, and that's saying something against the secondary. They had a quarterback that couldn't hit them.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad that the Eagles like have the schedule that they do, because I would love an opportunity to play this team again with Dak with everything on the line in December if that becomes an opportunity, because I think that the Cowboys could, with Dak playing normally, I think Cowboys could blow this team out of the water if they need to when they come back to Dallas.
There's just a chance by the time I think they play on Christmas Eve that it might not matter for Philly.
Yeah.
It might matter a little bit for Dallas for positioning, and maybe at that point Dallas is still fighting for a playoff spot or whatever. But the chances of that game mattering for the division are pretty low. But I think you're right. Like, this Phillies team is really good. Let's just be clear. They are not a 9-point better team than the Cowboys. Like they were tonight. They're not, right? And I saw Nick Sirianni after the game chirping on the sideline and shouting in the tunnel. It's like, hey, I get it. It's a big divisional win, but you're not playing the Cowboys at full strength, and you should know that, right?
Yeah, and again, like, I mean, even again tonight, like, I want to see this Eagles team play from behind. I want to see an opportunity for them to, like, play a good team from behind, because I just don't believe that if the Eagles had to get into a situation where they had to pass to win, that they could consistently do it. I think that the fact that they can continue to stay balanced in these games really keeps things open for them. But yeah, I just think that this is a team that I feel like is going to get a really high seeding in the playoffs because of the way the situation is, and that's the way it probably likely will end with the season. But I could easily see them being a first round loss in the playoffs, just because it feels like the same problems that they're going to run into are the kind of the same problems that a lot of teams that have kind of easy schedules, is that they only play a certain way and then they win that way. But if you're forced to play left-handed by a good team, you're going to struggle. And I mean, hats off to the Eagles. Obviously, they beat us tonight, and they've got a solid football team, a very good football team. But I think much like the Cowboys, they're benefiting from an easy schedule, and I don't know if their style of play is necessarily going to transition. There's just like this idea that they're like a physical football team, but I don't know that that's the case. They don't stop the run very well. They don't necessarily run yards per carry very well. They find a way through some really good scheme. And hats off to Nick Sirianni. Seriously, I do think the scheme there it fits the personnel, what they want to do extremely well.
Yeah, and they did a really good job in the first half, or really the second quarter, of like getting some ideal matchups. They put Micah Parsons in some weird things where he had to make decisions, and it had guys wide open. We'll get to the Cowboys defense in a second, but yeah, I mean, listen, this was a game. We said this on Friday. This was a more important game to the Eagles. They could not afford to let the Cowboys come into their place with a backup quarterback and beat them. If they wanted to establish themselves as a legitimate contender in the NFC and a legitimate Super Bowl contender, this game just meant more for them, and they won it. So hats off to them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are light years above Dallas either.
Oh no, absolutely not. Like I definitely think this is a team that I would not at all be afraid. I mean, that's the thing that I'm taking away overall from today's football, is that despite how we played today, I think a lot of it has to do with a piece that's going to be replaced here shortly, and I think there's going to be improvement.
Yeah,
there's no one in the NFC I'm afraid of. Like the Eagles, the Eagles came out and did what they did to us tonight. That's fine. At home against the backup quarterback, there's no one in the NFC that I'm afraid of if we can get into the playoffs. Like, I think that it just seems like there's a lot of kind of mediocre teams. And really maybe that's across the NFL, right? Like outside of Kansas City and Buffalo, and really maybe it's just Buffalo. Like, it feels like there's a lot of good and very good teams, but only maybe one great team.
To me, it feels like there's about 5 teams that are good, and then there's a bunch of crap in the middle, and then there's some really bad teams at the bottom. And that's kind of the way the NFL season is. And maybe that'll get sorted out. Like maybe teams like Green Bay or Tampa Bay or something like that, they'll figure it out. Baltimore will figure it out, but it's the way the season goes. Let's talk about the Cowboys defense in this game. Yeah. But before we do that, I want to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is so much fun. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Pick projection, you win. And you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on just about any sport that you watch. That includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis. MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They are currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com and sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, they'll give you 100. You deposit 50, they'll give you 50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, let's talk about the Cowboys defense because I have mixed feelings on them from this game. What are your thoughts? I'll just let you go first.
I thought they played really well. I mean, I think that especially on the along the line of scrimmage, I thought that they certainly played above kind of where we all expected. Philadelphia ended up starting, I think, all their starters this week. Everybody, despite all the kind of injury designations they had throughout the weeks, it sounded like basically everyone came out and played. Lane Johnson obviously left the game at a certain point, with a concussion, was out the rest of the game. But I think, it's hard not to argue that the Cowboys ended up with 4 sacks, I think 6 tackles for a loss. They were, I don't know what the yards per carry for
3.5, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, averaging 3.5 yards per carry. I thought that, for the most part along the line that the Cowboys did a great job. I think the Cowboys actually won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. But I do think that, the kind of inconsistency on third downs, like the inability specifically on early downs to kind of tighten things up and put things put Philadelphia in bad situations early, especially. It caused Philadelphia to kind of, it didn't cause Philadelphia, it allowed Philadelphia to kind of convert first downs at a high rate because they weren't really being put into a bunch of bad situations. And then, you had a couple of really bad backbreaker situations like the offsides penalty with Dante Fowler that if they had figured out a way to not do that, then maybe they get off the field. I just think that they got caught in a couple of bad situations that extended a couple of specific drives. But I thought that overall for what, they were facing specifically, and especially when you can talk about how badly the offensive side of the ball kind of set them up and all the bad positions they were put into. I thought that was really tough for the defense. But I think that, they, for the most part, they played well. I definitely want to go back and watch some of the tape, but especially, the back seven. But I thought for the most part up front, they definitely played well.
Yeah, it's just tough. I think you're right, but there was just moments in this game where the Cowboys needed their defense to make a play, and they just couldn't do it. Like, for example, starting in the going into the third quarter, they forced a punt, and the Cowboys had a 9-play, 79-yard touchdown drive. Next drive, they force a punt. Then the Cowboys have a 15-play, 93-yard touchdown drive that took up 7 minutes of the clock. We are into the fourth quarter, and the score now is 20-17. All you need to do is get a stop or force them to kick a field goal, and you have a chance to go tie or, to take the lead. And then the Eagles have a 13-play, 75-yard drive. On that drive, they had 3 third downs, and all of them were 3rd and 1, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 1. It's just they were so bad on first down in some of these drives that it put them in such bad spots on second and third downs. That's what I'm a little disappointed about because I know the defense can be better than that. They just needed one more great stop and they couldn't get it.
Yeah, I mean that's ultimately that drive specifically was really a killer one, and I think you nailed it. It had everything to do with an inability to kind of continue to keep the sticks long after first and second down. Specifically, it felt like first down. They started it out with Sanders with the big 13-yard run, and I think that was actually the longest run that Philadelphia had all night, if I'm not mistaken. But the problem is that when you can get 5 or 6 yards, that's and then they find another second down play that can just get you some kind of positive yardage. Then you're gonna end up in 3rd and 5 or less, 3rd and 4 or less, and that's really where it felt like Philadelphia was able to kind of continually convert those situations, and Dallas was not able to get off the field.
And Jalen Hurts is so good in 3rd and 1 because he's so big and he's athletic. You could use him on the quarterback sneak. So you've got to get him in 3rd and long. And the Cowboys defense just couldn't do it very often. And listen, I think they're the best 3rd and 5 plus defense in the league. And they were rarely in those situations tonight.
Yeah, and then again, like I think ultimately after all that, what happens is that either the offense is going to make a mistake or your defense makes a mistake, and on that drive specifically, the defense was the one that made the mistake that couldn't tackle AJ Brown on that pass on the 29, and he's able to take it into the red zone, and then obviously that kind of sealed the deal on that drive. But there's just lots of those kind of situations where you feel like you needed one more play from this defense, and if he got one more play, it would have been the difference in a touchdown or points even. So I think for the most part, again, it's encouraging. I thought the defense overall played well, but I mean, considering what you needed them to do tonight, it was not enough.
No, and that's the thing is it's so hard to consistently win games in the NFL.
Yeah,
basically bite with your defense only, right? And the offense had some plays in this game, but when you're going up against good teams, to ask your defense to hold teams under 20 points and create turnovers every week, it's really hard. That's why that's why you don't see a lot of just like number 1 ranked defenses and bad offenses go far in the playoffs, right? You've got to have a good balance. So
and that's why the Eagles have been able to maintain, despite not having. I mean, again, like when you watch them individually, it's not like they're like playing just dominating teams all the time. But what's happening is that they have incredibly solid second quarters, and they have been winning the turnover margin at such a high rate all these games, including this game. That they put their offense in advantageous positions, and they have an offense that can take advantage of those turnovers. So, it's a lot like what the Cowboys were dealing with at certain points last year.
All right. We just have a couple of minutes left before we head out. Big picture view. Cowboys are 4-2.
Yeah.
I think they have 2 more games here before the bye. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, they get the Lions and then
the Bears.
The Bears. That sounds right.
Oh my. Yeah. So
well
done. What would you like to see, or what should be the goal for the Cowboys over the next 11 games? Bad at math.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think you're trying to win those 2 games. I mean, the Lions, I think, is a physical. It's a tough out. The Lions are the definition of a tough out, right? They're probably not a good enough team to necessarily be favored against the Cowboys, especially if Dak's playing, but they're going to be physical. They're going to be this is going to be a difficult football game, right?
And they're coming off a bye.
Yep. And the Bears are the Bears. So you expect to kind of come away with 2 wins there, right? And then at that point, you're 6-2. You're going into the bye. You still got 9 games left. I think you're hoping at the very minimum to end up with 10 or 11 wins, I think, out of that the total, right? Like I would say that 11 or 12 is probably what you're really hoping for in order to kind of, make a strike for that wild card spot if you can't win the division. So, I think at this point for the Cowboys, like I said, we have to take it one game at a time. We got to get Dak back. We got to start stacking some wins together. I think they're in a good spot that they're trending in the right direction. They get their quarterback back. They get their offense back on track. It's all still all in front of them. They're going to need some luck to win the division, but they still have a very good chance to go into the playoffs. And I think once they're in the playoffs, they're going to be a very dangerous team to play.
Yeah, it's all about just getting Dak healthy, start playing better, right? Like start finally merging and marrying the offense and defense together, right? Have the offense start putting up 30 points a game and have the defense start to create turnovers like we saw last year. They can start to do that. The wins will stack up, and you never know. There's a lot of football that can happen. Weird games happen all the time, as we saw this week. I mean, you can see wild upsets like, I don't know, Steelers beating Tampa Bay.
That's shocking that you would bring that up. Honestly, I can't believe it.
Football's weird. It's maybe the Eagles will stumble. Maybe the Giants will stumble. Jeez, that's such a weird thing to say. But
I mean, the Eagles play the Steelers, right? Maybe we can get like you have to make some kind of sacrifice, right? You have to like sacrifice a Steelers win in order
Will I be
to
wearing
get
a
an Eagles
Steeler
loss.
jersey that week for the podcast?
Oh, wow. That would be
I might
quite
listen.
a thing.
Hey, that's so against my nature to root for the Steelers, but I think you're gonna have to.
I mean, against the Eagles, you may not have a choice.
Yeah, I'm definitely don't have a choice. So, all right, that is it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. As always, we want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Now, make your second listen the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, all the same places that you get the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'll be back on Tuesday to do some all 22 notes. I promise it's not all bad, even though the Cowboys lost. It ends this 4-game winning streak. There'll be positives to take away. There'll be some things that we'll look to clean up. We'll get to your Twitter questions later in the week. We've got a crossover show with Locked On Lions. Busy week here as we roll through the NFL season. Follow Landon at McCool BCB. I am at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you guys next time.